All right, welcome back to case studies for celebrities with planetary debilities or fallen planets and signs in their birth charts. So, in my last video, we went over a few different people. I think Mother Teresa, Venus in Virgo, Sigmund Freud, Venus in Scorpio. Well, we're moving on now in this video. This is my part 2 and last video on this for now, but we didn't talk about Mars in Libra. We did talk about Mars in Cancer, and we talked about Martin Luther King Jr., but we didn't talk about Mars in Libra. I don't believe, which is its detriment. So Mahatma Gandhi was born October 2nd, 1869, and as you can see, so we're just assuming 715, Porbandar, India. Mars at 24 degrees Libra in the 12th house, trining the Saturn and sextiling Venus. Okay. So Mars in Libra, it operates in the sign opposite of its rulership, being Scorpio, Aries. And aggression is diplomatized. Will is expressed through relationship, balance, and aesthetic form. Gandhi's Mars in the 12th house turned martial energy inward, sublimating rage into fasting, celibacy, and passive resistance. Trying to Saturn gave his non-violent strategic patience. Sextile Venus allowed love to become his weapon. Then again, we're looking at shadow expressions and integrated expressions, which for the rest of this video I'll just say SE and IE. And then we look at our manifestation analysis, which is our MA. Okay. So our SE is passive aggression, manipulative martyrdom, and repressed anger. And then our IE is weaponizing moral asymmetry, making the oppressors conscious the battlefield. All right. And we already went over Martin Luther King in my last video, or excuse me, my first video. So now we want to talk about Mars in Taurus, which is its detriment. We're talking about Angela Merkel, born July 17th, 1954 at 18, Hamburg, Germany. And Mars is at 19 degrees Taurus in the 9th house, trining Saturn and squaring Pluto. So we look at our MA, which is Mars in Taurus, expresses will through endurance, material consolidation, and refusal to move. Merkel's leadership style was slow, patient, economically grounded, exemplifies this. Her Mars in the 9th house applied this tenacity to ideology and international relations. The trine to Saturn gave her structural authority. Square to Pluto forced her to manage repeated Eurozone crises through transformation by attrition. So we look at our SE, look at our IE. We have obstinacy, resistance to innovation, passivity until crises, and strategic patience, exhausting opponents through immovable competence. We should switch up these colors. I actually liked using the other app better, but it shows all the tabs that I have in my docs, and I don't really like that. So we'll just keep it on. Let's talk about Jupiter, our Jovian debility, the expansive principle constructed. So Jupiter in Virgo is its detriment. So our subject is Karl Marx, born May the 5th, 1818 at 2 in Trier, Germany, with Jupiter at 27 degrees Virgo in the 2nd house, squaring Saturn and trining the moon. So we look at our MA. So Jupiter in Virgo seeks to expand through critique, refinement, and useful systems. Marx's entire corpus is a Jovian Virgoan project, diagnosing capitalist pathology, prescribing scientific socialism. The square to Saturn disciplined his vision into rigorous economic analysis. Trine Moon gave his theory emotional resonance with the working class. Our SE is hypercriticism, reductionism, dogmatic system building, and our IE is structural diagnosis as service, and refining utopian impulse into testable hypothesis. Okay? Now we're going to look at Jupiter in Capricorn, which is its fall. So Jupiter in Capricorn, we're looking at Charles Darwin, born February the 12th, 1809 at 3 in Shrewsbury in the UK, with Jupiter at 27 degrees Capricorn in the 9th house, sextiling Saturn, trining Mars. Again, we dissect this information. Jupiter in Capricorn is the fall of expansion. Growth is slow, cautious, earned through merit and time. Darwin spent 2 decades refining Origin of Species before publishing. Jovian optimism tempered by Capricornian rigor. Sextile Saturn gave him methodological discipline. Trine Mars sustained the long labor of empirical gathering. Pessimism about progress, authoritarian traditionalism, building knowledge as a cathedral, revolutionary ideas delivered in conservative packaging. Let's look at Saturn, which is, obviously the planet of, rules. Gotta follow the rules. Saturnine debility, the architect undermined. We look at Saturn in Cancer, and I actually have this placement. It's in its detriment. Let's observe Frida Kahlo, who was born July 6th, 1907, 8:30 in Mexico City, Mexico, with Saturn at the anaretic degree, 29 degrees. Okay, and it's in Cancer in the first house, and it's opposite Pluto, and it's squaring Uranus. I'm just going to move this right over here. So now that we have that information, what's our MA? Well, Saturn's in Cancer, and it's seeking a security through emotional fortification, lineage preservation, and maternal authority. Kalos Saturn at 29 degrees Cancer, again the anaretic degree, in the first house, made her identity a fortress of pain. Her body, which is the first house, was the site of Saturnine limitation, polio, accident. Her art became the architecture of her suffering. Opposition Pluto forced repeated transformation through trauma. Square Uranus ruptured any stable domesticity. And we look at our SE and IE, emotional withholding, defensive clinging, martyrdom, turning the house of pain into a public altar, domestic imagery as a political statement. And it does depend on what house it's sitting in as well, even though it's debilitated regardless. Like, for example, hers is in the first house, but mine is in the third house. So, honestly, how that manifested for me, ancestral karma, generational patterns. Anyways, now we can move on. To Saturn in Leo. Saturn in Leo is its detriment. And someone that has this placement, John F. Kennedy Jr., who was born November 25th, 1960, in Washington, D.C. Again, with the birth time, I'm not totally accurate, because the thing is, when we are looking at celebrities' birth charts, we're not totally sure about an accurate birth time. We don't know these people in person, most of us. So the time of birth is just off sometimes. All right? So Saturn is at 24 degrees Leo in the second house, trining Mars, squaring Neptune. What does it mean? Well, Saturn in Leo struggles to structure creative expression and personal authority. Born into dynastic expectation, Kennedy Jr. spent his life negotiating inherited fame, Leo, with personal achievement, Saturn. Second house placement tied this to self-worth and resources. And trine Mars gave him physical courage, flying. Square Neptune blurred his vocational path and ultimately contributed to his fatal navigational error. This placement manifests Saturn in Leo, performance anxiety, authoritarian parenting, creative blocks, using inherited platform for civic publishing, George Magazine, dignified public grief as a national service. I'm pretty sure my father has this placement. Anyways, R.I.P. Saturn in Leo, because wow. But if you have Saturn in Aries, it's gonna look a little bit different, but not so much because they're both fire signs. But Saturn in Aries is Saturn in its fall, and we just looked at it in its detriment. Remember, these are different things. It's still, the planet isn't happy in these signs, but like I said in my first video, I explained. So either way, Saturn isn't happy in Leo or in Aries. Why? Because let's observe another one. So Albert Einstein had Saturn in Aries, and he was born March 14th, 1879, 11:30, Ulm, Germany. I've talked about him in the last video. Saturn is at 5 degrees Aries in the 11th house, trining Mercury and sextiling Jupiter. And now that we know this, well, Saturn in Aries is the fall of the taskmaster. Discipline must be self-generated, not inherited. Authority is earned through pioneering. Einstein's Saturn in the 11th house applied this to collective knowledge. He revolutionized physics not within institutions, but against them. Trine Mercury gave his rebellious thought rigorous form. Sextile Jupiter expanded his solitary insights into cosmological paradigm. So we're looking at the transits as well, which are very important. So how this manifests is rebellious defiance, difficulty with collaboration, authority conflict, founding new disciplines through intellectual courage, solitary persistence rewarded by collective recognition. Okay? Now we're looking at Uranus and the Uranian debility, the awakener and trained. So Uranus in Leo is in its detriment. We're looking at Madonna, who was born August 16th, 1958. Again, I don't know if this is accurate time or not. We're speculating here, but Bay City, with Uranus at 14 degrees Leo in the 10th house, trining her sun and squaring her Pluto. So Uranus in Leo seeks liberation through creative self-expression and being a celebrity. Madonna's Uranus in the 10th house made her career continue since a series of iconoclastic reinventions. The square to Pluto gave her transformations life and death intensity. Trining Sun fused her identity with her Uranian mission. And how this manifests: shock for shock's value, narcissistic rebellion, fame addiction, using celebrity to expand sexual and artistic freedom, generational disruption of gender norms. Now let's look at Uranus in Taurus, which is its fall. So Muhammad Ali had this placement, born January 17th, 1942. We're speculating on the time. Louisville, with Uranus at 28 degrees Taurus in the 7th house, squaring his Saturn and trining his Neptune. So Uranus in Taurus is the fall of the revolutionary. Innovation must manifest through material reality, the body, and established value systems. Ali's Uranus in the 7th house revolutionized the dyadic encounter. Boxing became a platform for racial and spiritual protest. His refusal of the draft was Uranian lightning crystallized in Taurus conviction. Square Saturn discipline is rebellion with consequence, title stripping. Tri-Neptune gave his resistance mythic resonance. And how this manifests. Stubborn iconoclasm, materialistic rebellion, body as political text, champion as prophet, physical courage as cosmic principle. We're observing Neptune and Neptunian debility, the dissolver confounded. Neptune in Virgo, which is its detriment. We look at MLK Jr. again, born January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, with Neptune at 2 degrees Virgo. In his second house, trining his moon, sextiling Pluto. Neptune in Virgo seeks transcendence through practical service and systemic healing. King's Neptune in the second house dissolved individual self-worth into collective value. His dream was not ethereal, but grounded in legislative demand. Trine Moon allowed him to feel the nation's wound. Sextile Pluto gave his compassion transformative political force. And how this manifests. Martyr complex, perfectionist spirituality, health anxiety, mystical politics, the dream as legislative blueprint, compassion institutionalized. Neptune in Capricorn, which is its fall. We're looking at Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift was born December 13th, 1989. This is a speculative account. Neptune, 12 degrees Capricorn, in the 11th house, squaring Mercury, trining Venus. Neptune in Capricorn dissolves and idealizes structures, authority, and legacy. Taylor Swift's Neptune in the 11th house infuses a relationship with audiences and institutions, record labels, awards with mythic charge. Her career-long battle for ownership of her masters is a quintessential Neptune in Capricorn drama, dissolving old contracts, spiritualizing intellectual property. In Square Mercury blurs autobiographical truth into archetypal narrative. Trine Venus gives her dissolution aesthetic beauty. How this manifests: victim narratives, institutional disillusionment, boundary diffusion. Re-recording albums has artistic resurrection, transforming corporate grievance into generational parable. Pluto, very fiery planet. Plutonian debility and exaltation this time. We're looking at the Phoenix choice. So Pluto in Taurus, which is its detriment, we're looking at Vincent van Gogh, born March 30th, 1853. Pluto, 2 degrees Taurus, in the 5th house, opposite Mars, squaring Mercury. Pluto in Taurus detriment compels transformation through material reality, the body, and what we value. Van Gogh's Pluto in the 5th house, creativity, self-expression, forced, repeated death rebirth cycles in his art. His paintings transformed the solid earth, Taurus, into radiant, molten energy. Opposition Mars turned his creative assertion against itself. Square Mercury tortured his cognition. And how this manifests: destabilizing materialism, possessive obsession, value crises. Earth as ecstasy, cypress trees as flame, peasant shoes as sacrament. Pluto in Aquarius, which is its fall, we are looking closely at a generational cohort. So what I mean by that is Pluto is already in Aquarius. And we are experiencing some crazy stuff in regards to transgenderism, in regards to AI and everything, right? So that is Pluto in Aquarius, and it's its fall, and we're observing it because this is a general collective reading right here. This is literally a general collective reading because everyone is experiencing this in the sky. In the universe, Pluto is in Aquarius. All right? And it's staying there until 2044. And this is going to affect all of us. So Pluto and Aquarius, we're looking at our manifestation analysis with our predictive retrospective 2071. So Pluto in Aquarius is the fall of the transformer. Revolution must occur through collective networks, technology, and radical egalitarianism, but without the structural patience of Saturn or the dissolution of Neptune. The generation born under this placement, now adults in 2071, has inherited a world requiring total systemic transformation. Their challenge: wield plutonic intensity without authoritarian capture, dissolve hierarchy without anarchy, innovate without alienation. Early indicators: 2024 through 2044, we look at our climate mobilization decentralized via neural mesh networks, AI rights movements, collapse of legacy democratic structures replaced by liquid consensus algorithms, the noospheric reformation. I strongly suggest you watch my other videos if you have not, because I go over so much advanced astrology. So Pluto and Leo, and then we'll be done with this, is its exaltation. It's a contrast case, and we're looking at Stephen King. Born September 21st, 1947, speculating here. And Pluto, 14 degrees Leo, in the 5th house, trining the sun, sextiling Venus. This is how you make a fiery war planet good, believe it or not. Pluto in Leo is exaltation. The transformer finds effortless expression through creative will, performance, and the sovereign self. King's Pluto in the 5th house, creativity, children, romance, again that's the 5th house, transmutes collective fear into best-selling narrative. His novels are plutonic rituals. They expose the shadow of small-town America and force readers to confront their own darkness. Trine Sun fused his identity with his transformative vocation. Sextile Venus gave his horrors seductive craft. And then how this manifests: egocentric creativity, power struggles with audience, artistic arrogance, democratizing the dissent, making shadow work accessible to millions, the horror writer as unlicensed psychoanalyst. Here's our conclusion: debility as differentiation. The natal chart is not a report card. Planets in fall or detriment are not punishments, but evolutionary intensifiers. They concentrate archetypal energy into a narrower channel, increasing resistance and therefore requiring greater conscious voltage. The individuals profiled here did not succeed despite their debilities. They succeeded through them. In the language of temporal resonant astrosynthesis, TRAS, these placements represent high variance probability nodes. The native must actively collapse the waveform toward constructive expression. The default, unconscious collapse is often pathological. The field reports above demonstrate the full spectrum of such collapses from shadow to genius, and affirm that the most differentiated souls are often those forged in the harshest archetypal crucibles. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. With peace and love, Piscean.